Namaste everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Bibliotheca Presents Indian Mythology vs. Science. This is your host Pulkit from London, United Kingdom, and today we will be talking about Parshuram. As most of us know, some of us don't, that India, essentially South Asia, is a treasure land filled with scriptures, texts, records, artifacts, books, tomes, with millions and millions of records of anecdotes, events, personalities, biographies, lots of things which are supposed or believed to have happened in the past. However, the modern Western world does not choose to believe in these. They think that these are just fables or folklore or just stories which are passed on from generation to generation, despite the fact that these are recorded, they are on books, but they are not verified. They are considered to be something called as mythology. So first of all, let's see what's mythology. Mythology is described as a collection or a record of ancient myths in general, or the ancient myths of a particular culture, society, etc. Basically a book or a record which contains myths. And what are myths? Myth is a widely held but false belief or idea. That means what the modern Western world says or science says is that these records which are present in India or South Asia, they are not historical records. They may or may not be true, and they are inclined to believe that these aren't true and they are just myths. People believe these stories, but these are actually false. And why do they say this? Why do they say that these are myths? No one knows. But there is no historical or scientific basis to them. That is what they believe. They call them to be ludicrous. That means laughable. So ludicrous. These records or these books from ancient books from South Asia or India essentially are considered to be foolish, unreasonable, out of place, has to be amusing. That means ludicrous. There is no scientific basis. And sometimes I tend to believe, or I would have agreed with them, but technology has advanced a lot. There are some events or some biographies noted in these records or in the mythology which tend to be fantastic, which tend to be unbelievable. But the way the technology has advanced, possibly now science has gone far enough so that we might be able to explain some of things that have been recorded in these ancient texts. And then the question arises whether we choose to believe in them or not. For example, if 100 years ago someone would have said that there would be a device everyone would be able to carry in their pockets that would be used to talk to a person on the other side of the globe as if they were right in front, with pictures and sounds which would also tell where the person is going, which would give directions, also help take pictures, no one would have believed them. They would have called them ludicrous, but everyone has a smartphone in their pocket now. Case in point, let's talk about a personality from one of the ancient Indian mythologies, a person called Parshuram. Parshuram was this great warrior, great maverick warrior, archer. He could wield any weapon. He was practically invincible on the battlefield, and there was some very interesting stories regarding his birth and his youth. But in this episode we will just focus on one of the aspects of his life which make his story ludicrous. But now the modern physics has found some evidence which might support that Parshuram might indeed have done what it is claimed that he did. So Parshuram appears in many places, in many texts, in many scriptures, but there are two places which are burned into the memory of people. Now the first of these is during the era of Ram or Lord Ram. So Lord Ram, when he was young, he was invited to the city, to the capital city of Sita, his future wife, where a swamvar was being held. That means an event where it was decided who would marry the bride. There were a lot of prospective grooms and they had to prove their worth. And then the prospective bride or the girl chose from one of them. Now in this swamvar, in this place where Lord Ram went to marry his future wife, there was a great mammoth bow called as Shiv Dhanush. It's a story for another time, but basically what events led to was that accidentally by the hand of Lord Ram, this Shiv Dhanush got disintegrated, it got broken, and Parshuram or Bhagwan Parshuram was a big devotee of Lord Shiv. So when he heard, it is said that he heard a gargantuan noise, and he immediately rushed to this place where the Swamvar was being held, and he started threatening Lord Ram with dire consequences because he had broken a valuable and an artifact which had a great deal of emotional value for Parshuram. Okay, so we'll continue the story later in some of the later episodes, but basically this is a very prominent appearance of Parshuram in the era of Lord Ram. Then fast forward into the future, Parshuram also appeared in another prominent personality's lifetime, that was Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna came later after Lord Ram, though both are believed to be reincarnations of the same deity. But in the era of Lord Krishna or the great Mahabharat war, Parshuram also appeared at many instances, and his appearance have been noted by some wars, some battles, or some grave discussions. But basically, why the Western modern theorists or historians find this hard to believe was that this same person, Parshuram, appeared in many places in these historical texts, but these two prominent places, and it is not possible for a single human being to have done that. Why? Why? Because these scriptures, these Indian ancient mythology scriptures, say that the time is cyclical, and one cycle is divided into 4 different parts, which are called 4 yugs. The longest or the first part is called a Satyug. It is a bit over 17 lakh years. Then the second part or the second stage is called Treta Yuga. As you can see, a little over 12 lakh years. Then the third part is smaller. It is about over 8 lakh years. And the smallest part is called Kali Yuga, just over 4 lakh years. It is said that currently we are in the era of Kali Yuga, and the first 5,000 years have passed in the Kali Yuga. Okay, but what is interesting is that the era of Lord Ram or Ram was the Treta Yuga, while the next Yuga was the era of Lord Krishna, Dwapar Yuga. It is believed that both of these maverick personalities, they existed towards the end of their respective yugs. So even if we say that Lord Ram existed at the end of the Treta Yuga and Krishna at the end of Dwapar Yuga, still there was over 8 lakh years of time interval between their appearances, and the mythological texts say that Parshuram, he hobnobbed with both Ram and Krishna. And for a single human being or a single person to have done that, that means he was present at 2 places in the history which were over 8 or 9 lakh years apart. That means this person either lived through 9 to 10 lakh years, possibly even more because he existed before this, and who knows if he exists today. But how can a human being have such a long lifespan? 9, 10 lakh years, that's not possible. In the early eras, the medieval period, the life expectancy for a human being was much shorter. Now it is considered to be 100 more or less. But 10 lakh years? Well, there are some theories which might explain this and which might also bring a bit of credibility to the story. It's your choice. My job is to put them forth. Now, I'm not a physicist, but I am a scientific person. I'm an ophthalmologist, but I refer to other geniuses which you people might be well aware of. The first person in black and white is Stephen Hawking, a great luminary, possibly the most famous scientist of the previous century or this century. And the bald-headed guy is his friend and colleague, a very, very illustrious physicist known as Kip Thorne. Now, these people have been working on theories. The main area of interest for Stephen Hawking was black holes, but they also worked on other theories, basically understanding the relation between space and time and how time cannot be linear or cyclical. Let's not get into the scientific jargon. For those of you who are interested, their areas of study are black holes, time warps, bootstrap paradox, interstellar spacecraft and travel, wormholes, event horizon. Now, interstellar spacecraft, for those of my listeners who are inclined towards the magic of movies, might have seen this film, and that is exactly what I refer to possibly explain the case of Parshuram. So what is interstellar? Interstellar is between galaxies or between, so we are in a wide, possibly infinite space, and our planet Earth, is even smaller than a dot in this wide space. And in this space there are multiple dimensions, there are multiple realms, there are multiple layers, multiple places, and though time might exist according to these theories in all these places, but it might have a different pace or a different speed. So if you might have watched Interstellar, if you might not have watched, I'll just say that Matthew McConaughey, the famous Hollywood Oscar-winning actor, was in Interstellar and he played an astronaut. So in the film, the planet Earth is dying, and now they are looking for an alternative planet which is like the Earth, where the human race can be transferred and proliferate. So Matthew McConaughey leaves the Earth for about a few years, 4 to 5 years. That is when he's leaving his young, and the girl beside him is his young daughter. Now he comes after 4 or 5 years. He hasn't aged much, but when he comes back, his daughter is about 100 years old. She's on her deathbed. She's about to die, and eventually she does die. So how is it possible that a man was gone for a few years, 4 or 5 years, but by the time he came back, he hadn't aged, but his daughter had aged terribly? That is what happened in the case of Parshuram. He came to the Earth, he left the Earth. When he came back, he had aged a bit. He was a bit older, but he was not older by 10 lakh years. A complete era had passed on the Earth, and there were new people on Earth. But he hadn't aged terribly. Definitely he hadn't died. So how did he do that? Now these theories, they are very detailed and elaborative, but basically for us laymen, the simple thing is that there are places in the space or in the universe which are called as portals or wormholes, black holes. Basically these are doorways or paths, raste, through which if you can survive entering these and you can survive exiting these, you can enter these from your own galaxy or your own part of the universe and exit it in a different part of the universe. And in this different part of the universe, the speed or pace of time might be different from yours. So basically what you do, you get into a rocket, hypothetically. Hopefully in the near future, we would be able to do that. We are talking about space travel, but so we get into a rocket, we exit a wormhole, enter a wormhole, exit it. When we exit it, we are in a different universe. So when we started, we were on the time of Earth or the Milky Way galaxy. When we exit, we are on a time of a different place, and we age or our body reacts to that on a different time scale. And suppose we entered from our Earth time, but we exited in an alternate universe, and for the sake of argument, 5,000 years on Earth are equal to 5 minutes in this alternate universe. Okay, so when you exited the earth, you are in this place, every 5 minutes are equal to 5,000 years. Suppose you spent half an hour or so and you came back, many, many years, about 30,000 or more years would have passed on earth. So, you entered there, suppose a young woman or a young man, and when you enter the earth back, you haven't aged at all. It's the same day for you. But on earth, many, many decades, many centuries, many millennia have passed, and you are still there, you're still young. Kind of time travel, but then, if this theory is true, which they believe it theoretically, hypothetically it is believed to be true, and they are looking for these black holes or wormholes. So if this theory is true, then definitely it is possible that a person was alive during a certain era on earth, and then he was again alive 10 lakh years later, because he was not on earth, he was in an alternate dimension. It is said in the scriptures that Parshuram lived on a mountain. Possibly, over the time, as these mythological stories are passed from generation to generation, there is a lot of embellishing, a lot of exaggeration, mirch masala. It is possible that the true nature of the story is lost somewhere and there are a lot of additions. But basically, the core structure is that that person did exit the earth. He used to live on a different planet or an asteroid or a planetary body or a planetoid, which they described as a mountain so that the masses would be able to accept it better. But that was in an alternate dimension, and the speed of that time on that dimension was different to that on Earth. So, though he didn't age, he spent a few years there, but here, millennia had passed, and when he came back, many years, lakhs of years had passed. He aged a bit, but he hadn't died. So, the question arises, is it possible? Is it possible that a person did survive over 10 lakh years and some truth about his life was recorded in these mythological books or tomes or scriptures? I leave that to you. Is it possible that not only our era, the previous eras were more technologically advanced than us? They knew how to use interstellar space travel. They knew how to use wormholes or black holes. Possibly they were more advanced. They got destroyed. There was an apocalyptic event after which all the knowledge started again from zero. And this is where we have gotten so far. But we can't be conceited or arrogant to believe that we are the most advanced of the human race that has ever existed. It is possible. It is possible. It might be all bunch of ridicules or bunch of rubbish. I leave that to you. Whether this history or whether these scriptures or texts is this ancient history or is it just mythology? You decide. Totally up to you. So, this is where I leave you. I hope you had fun during this first episode. This will be the theme of the upcoming episodes in the series. We'll be exploring some characters, some fascinating people from these Indian mythology and try to decide whether it was actually history or it is just a bunch of myths. But whatever it may be, we will try to find a scientific basis which would explain that yes, if it was recorded, today's science can explain it. It may or may not be true, but it can be explained. So until next time, you decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. My mind is still not made up, and together we'll take this journey. And a word from our sponsors, Bibliotheca's best-selling high fantasy novel, Love is For and Monsters Are Gods in Ayemia, is available worldwide on Amazon. Do read it. You'll read a lot of fun stories similar to the one which we have discussed or spoken about. And until next time, bye-bye, take care, namaste.